Hello and welcome back. Today we are working on our superficial back line of our body, the opposite of what we did yesterday in our superficial front line. The superficial back line runs from our third eye all the way up through the top of the head, down the back and down the back of both legs, all the way to the bottoms of the toes. So we'll start in tabletop today. Just catching some breath in tabletop, kind of centering yourself on your mat. Start to notice your breath inside of your belly. On your inhales, your belly drops just a little bit towards the floor. You're not coming into a cow pose here. What you're doing instead is just letting all of the musculature in your belly relax so that your belly hangs down towards the floor. And on your exhale, see if you can pick all of that musculature up and draw it up towards your spine. Inhaling is letting your belly go and relax. Exhales, picking the pit of your belly up, hollowing your core out towards your spine. Now, as you're doing this, think about what you're drawing up as being a shield that covers from your hip points all the way up to underneath your rib cage. And you're picking that entire shield up in towards your back. What you're feeling when you engage the shield is called your transverse abdominal muscle. And it runs from your hip points up to your ribs. This muscle is going to be really important as we go through our superficial back line today, because engaging it will help to lengthen through the whole back. Engaging it will just give you a little bit more in each of the poses that we're doing. All right, the next time that you pick up your transverse ab in towards your spine, round yourself all the way up into cat pose. Tuck your chin in towards your chest. Think about tucking your tailbone under, lengthening through your lower back, and we're staying right here with breath. With every exhale, still thinking about picking up your belly more and more, picking up your transverse ab up into your spine. And you might rock a little bit from front to back here, keeping this flexion in your spine, this rounding and hollowness. Couple more breaths. Push your arms away from the floor, which means you're pushing your hands down and your shoulders up and away. And relax that for just a moment. Reset yourself if you need to. You might wiggle out your hands just a little bit. On your next exhale, take that little cat pose again. This time, tuck your toes under and lift your knees with that cat pose up away from the mat. So you're still as tucked under as possible. Your hands might be just slightly in front of you. And you might go ahead and rock a little bit forward and back. Notice your heels going forward towards your hands and then back towards the mat. Finding a little bit of length in the bottoms of the feet, a little bit of mobility and warmth there. Still hugging your abdomen up towards your spine. Take just another couple of breaths here. You could still rock or be in stillness. Really rounding out on that last exhale. And then lengthen your legs, downward dog. Taking downward dog just a little differently today. Walk your hands slightly more towards your feet so that your heels can be down on the floor. Usually I tell you as a teacher that I want you to bend your knees in downward dog, but today, since we're really working on that superficial back line, we're going to lengthen the legs as much as possible. Push weight out of your hands by pressing your hips up and back. And now I want you to think about lifting your toes up off of the mat. Really different downward dog. With every exhale, still concentrating on the roundness, the hollowness of your abdomen. Knees pressed back behind you. Few more breaths. And release, drop your knees down towards the floor, bring your feet together and sit down on your toes. Walk your hands back. And just for a moment here, pressing your heels down towards the floor. They may be lifted up a little bit, that's okay. Feeling some length through your calves, your Achilles tendons, and right down into the arches of your feet. Remembering that the back line goes all the way down through the bottoms of your feet. And often when we think about stretching or lengthening a part of our body, we're never really thinking about the arches of our feet. Not usually, unless maybe if you're a dancer. But really, you know, when we talk about that fascial chain, we talk about if there's any break or any imbalance in any part of a fascial line, then we're causing less mobility elsewhere and compensation elsewhere. So hitting even those smaller parts of the fascial line, like the bottoms of the feet, is really important for the mobility of the rest of the back fascial line. All right, now staying in the sit, but lift your heels as high as possible so that your toes are really spreading out into the mat and you're shifting your weight just a little bit forward. If you need to, you might even reach down and kind of help your toes spread out just a little bit if they're feeling a little stuck underneath you. Keep squeezing your legs together, your knees together. And sitting here, finding some extra breath. We're just lengthening underneath the toes now. You might even take, if you're fairly mobile and you're fairly comfortable here, you might even take some little rocks from front to back. Get a little bit more deeply into those toes. And staying here, start to round out your spine. Tuck your chin into your chest and think about the cat pose spine. Keep your round spine, start to send your heels down towards the floor and lengthen your legs. Keep rounding your spine, tuck your chin into your chest and really slowly roll all the way up into standing. Taking a moment in your standing before we go back down. As we move back into a forward fold here, think about going very slowly. Tuck your chin into your chest, and we're going to snake ourselves right back down, rounding one vertebrae at a time, all the way back down into your forward fold. So tucking your chin into your chest first, and then bending your knees just a little tiny bit, starting to round. Think about curling up into a little spiral, a little ball. And when you can't really round your spine anymore, starting to fold over, press your knees back behind you into this forward fold. But instead of how we usually do this, where we bend into the knees and try to lengthen the back, we're picking the transverse abdomen up and trying to really round the forehead towards the knees. Lengthen through your legs the whole time. And take your arms, just lift your fingertips up off of the floor so that you're fully engaged. Now you're going to really notice this wherever is tightest. So if you're feeling it in the back of your neck, or in between your shoulders, or in your legs, all of that is totally fine, totally normal. Couple more breaths. Abdomen hollowing out. And place your fingertips down on the floor. Bend your knees just for a moment. Look up slightly towards your fingertips. Take a long spine. Just a breath or two here with this long spine. And on your next exhale, start to straighten your legs, round yourself back in. This time, taking your arms a little bit behind you, like airplane arms. They're not winging up, you're not squeezing your back muscles, rather they're helping you kind of pick up and away from the mat, find that rounding. Legs again are really long and straight. You might even transfer some weight into your toes here. Notice how that subtle shift in where you're holding your weight can really change how everything is distributed around this fascial line. And if this is really difficult, if you're shaking, know that I definitely shake too here. This is a really difficult, fully engaged back body work. Holding for 3, 2, 1. Bend your knees, walk your hands out. Find that little downward dog again. This might even feel different than when you were here a few moments ago. Press your heels down into the mat, lift your toes up, legs as straight as possible. If you need to, you could walk your hands just a little further back. Sending your tailbone up, up, up towards the ceiling as though someone's kind of standing behind you with a string, just pulling your tailbone up. Another 5. Pick up your abdomen. 4, 3, lift your toes. 2, and 1, bend your knees. Set your knees down on your mat. Come around to a seat and send your feet in front of you. Take your left foot, cross your left foot over your right ankle. Reach right around back, move your flesh away from your sit bones. If you do find that you need to sit on a block here, then that's totally fine, totally doable. So to bring your hands just gently behind your head, fingertips just to the base of your skull, your occipital ridge, right where your skull meets your neck. And starting to find that little rounding in your transverse abdomen, take your right elbow and start to fold forward, rounding your right elbow toward your left foot, that top foot. So your left foot is on top, your right elbow is leaning forward and reaching. Now, because that fascial line splits really at the base of your spine and goes down each leg, we're just addressing one leg at a time here, although it might feel a little bit like both. Finding more hollowness in your spine as you reach your arm forward. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release. Sit back up, shake your arms out a little bit. Cross your right foot over your left this time, setting yourself up for that reach on the other side. I'm not sure that it ever ceases to amaze me how much just working on active mobility like this really, I mean, you figure it's a lot of core work. We've been engaging our transverse abdominal muscle the entire time because, like we talked about for the front line, when we're lengthening one line, the opposing line has to engage. And here, when we lengthen the back line, that means that we have a lot of core muscle working anytime that we want to really lengthen that full back line. All right, so now that we've had a little moment, take your right foot, cross over your left foot, hands, fingertips right up on that occipital ridge. And this time, left elbow is coming down toward the right toes and hollowing out the spine. So again, we're really rounding here to create as much length as possible, even though the elbow is reaching towards the toes. The spine is rounding. For another 5. 4. 3. 2. Round. 1. Release, sit up. Separate your legs, shake them out just a little bit. Taking one more forward fold here. Once again, removing your flesh away from your sit bones as needed. And starting off, just bending the knees a little bit. Not too much. We really want to keep that back line going, but we never want to fold forward on really locked joints. That's also not healthy for our bodies, for our fascia, for our bones. So taking your legs long here and starting to fold forward, but just like we did standing, round your chin down into your chest and start to round yourself forward, like you're trying to place your head right onto your knees. Torso might pivot forward a little bit as well, but we're still using transverse abdominal to pick ourselves up, to hollow out into that really exaggerated cat spine. Go ahead, bring your arms out behind you. Fingertips might be on the floor here, but maybe really try to pick the fingertips up. And now take your tailbone, your sit bones, and press them down into the floor. Think about lengthening away from those sit bones. Take the backs of your knees and just press them down towards the floor. Find even more length. Spine still rounded, chin still pressed into the chest so that we're rounding all the way up through the crown of the head. And 5 more. 4. 3, you got this. 2. 1. Go ahead, sit up. Move your body around just a little bit. Grab onto your block. Scooch down on your mat. Taking our final little counter stretch, counter pose of our class. Always trying to relax and release the line and contract the line that we just lengthened. Making sure that we are promoting elasticity. Bring your block right in between your shoulder blades. Lie down on it. And you might keep your chin tucked into your chest here or allow your head to fully relax back. It's completely up to you. Just taking a moment, letting your front line lengthen and release from all of that contracting, and your back line kind of neutral out a little bit. If this feels uncomfortable at all in your lower back, you could bend your knees. Taking a few more moments here. Just notice the sensations in your body. Notice how your breath is moving. Go ahead, tuck your chin in, lift up off of your block. Place your block to the side and start to settle down onto your mat, taking your little Shavasana. Once again, you can always pause the video here if you have a longer time to take Shavasana today. And if you do have that time, I really suggest taking a full Shavasana and really melting down into your mat. Thank you for taking class with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. Drink plenty of water today. I will see you tomorrow. Namaste.